What is up, everybody, and welcome to another Armchair Fantasy Football live stream. Week 4 is here, and we're here to give you a few injury updates, take care of some housekeeping things, of course, plug and play options, and whatever all of your fantasy football related questions are along the way, we are here to answer them as well. I also just want to say we just hit 800 subscribers in our last live stream on Friday night. Just wanted to say again, thank you so much for all of the support. We greatly appreciate it. Now let's get into the injuries and other updates. Of course, we have the scrolling ticker on the bottom of the screen as well if you have any questions regarding something I may or may not have mentioned already. We've got Austin Ekeler and Saquon Barkley, both doubtful. Plug and plays will come in just a bit. Yeah, not the most optimal scenario when you have two guys who are top 5 across fantasy PPR at the position. Probably not playing this week. Definitely not the most ideal. The easy answer would be to say, let's go and get Matt Breida or Joshua Kelly, and both of them have decent matchups against Seattle and Las Vegas, but we'll go through that in just a moment. David Njoku is in against Baltimore. Kind of a last-second freak accident. He had something go on with a fire pit. He was setting up a fire pit, and he has burn marks on his skin. Kind of scary stuff. Like on his face and arm, I think I saw. Facing something. Looks like he will be good to go and is supposedly comfortable putting his helmet on, so that's good. Deshaun Watson is out against Baltimore. That means Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who had some nice showings on design rollouts in preseason, will take over because it is like a last-second sub-out, and we have a couple of these. Not the biggest fan of going in and starting Thompson-Robinson unless you're in a really deep league and you're in a pinch. Derek Carr is in against Tampa Bay. Actually wasn't sure we'd see this, but we saw him exit the game against Green Bay last week. Obviously, if Jameis Winston were to have come in, it wouldn't have been the worst-case scenario out of all the backups in the world. But we know Chris Olave is the favorite target when Carr is in, and Carr is in. So that'll hopefully provide some reassurance for you Olave owners. So we got Brian in here. Brian, I'll get to your question in just a moment. Good to see you. Miles Sanders expected to play against Minnesota. Lingering groin injury throughout the week, was listed as questionable pretty much up until today. I think he actually still is, but reports coming out of Underdog and a couple of other sources that he should be good to play. Minnesota's defense, not the strongest, but against the run, that's kind of their strength. Their defense is only allowing 3.8 yards per carry. Secondary has been more of the issue. Marquise Brown, the man in the thumbnail, is expected to play with a thumb injury. I wouldn't go out of my way to start him if there are considerably better options or even guys in the same tier for you. San Francisco, extremely tough matchup. And the Cards get blown out. If they get blown out like how they're supposed to, maybe we see some garbage time targets for Marquise Brown. I think that's best case scenario. Or if somehow Arizona competes, then we've got a game on our hands, sure. But somewhat injured, going up against a really tough defense. Not the biggest fan of the situation. And on the other end of the coin, Deebo Samuel is expected to play against Arizona. He had a ribs and knee injury throughout the week. There's no Elijah Mitchell today. So if Deebo is around 100%, maybe we see him run a little bit more. Again, we'll have to see how the game script works out. San Francisco is a 2-touchdown favorite. Some usage reports. I like to do these just to see who's elevating in terms of the amount of touches they should be getting, what kind of a role they have in their offense. We called this earlier in the week before any report came out. Ezekiel Elliott should see more of a starter role this week. That's per Underdog. He's been way more efficient. I mean, it's as simple as that. Then Ramondre Stevenson, they're about the same weight, so you can't really play the whole, well, Zeke will be our goal line guy and Ramondre will be our all-purpose guy. No, like, Ezekiel Elliott has flat out been the better back. And Devon Achane should also see a more significant part in the Dolphins offense. Again, that team exploded for 70 points. Yes, Raheem Mostert looked phenomenal, but statistically, Devon Achane had a better game. He's younger and probably more likely to be a member of the future of this Miami backfield. Plug and plays, Joshua Palmer, 46% rostered against Las Vegas. Tyler Boyd, 43% rostered against Tennessee, a defense allowing over 270 pass yards per game. Roschon Johnson, 45% rostered against Denver. They're allowing the most fantasy points to running backs. Obviously, Chicago's just going to have to stay in that game. Jake Ferguson, 24% rostered against New England. Tough matchup, but he does lead the entire NFL in red zone targets with 9. And the Seahawks defense, a lot of people like to stream defenses, myself included. They're going up against the New York Giants. And if there is no Saquon, I could definitely see the Seahawks defense doing well. All right, let's get to Brian's question here, and then we'll hop in my browser window that refused to pop up. Sorry, one second. I'll get to that in a moment. All right, so Brian says, Corey's stuck in between a flex. My wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Adams. Running backs are Swift and ETN. Stuck between Myers, Mostert, or even Jacoby Myers. PPR, that's set up fine, or who would you swap out? Jacoby Myers has a really good matchup against that Chargers secondary that is allowing the most passing yards per game. I honestly like Jacoby Myers in a PPR setup, especially because we're getting reports from Underdog that Devon Achane should get more usage. I'm still a sell high Mostert guy. I do think he could still put together a handful of good weeks, but he's injury prone. He's 31, and there's younger, more sustainable talent behind him, for the years to come. So I'm probably going Jacoby Myers in a PPR format. I started last week to lean away and get a little cute and try and go towards running backs because I felt like some of them would be more effective. But Jacoby Myers can just get a few grabs in what should honestly be a shootout. It's going to be a little unpredictable because we know that Aiden O'Connell will be there instead of Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think we go Jacoby Myers here. Jelly says, morning. Good to see you, Jelly of the month. Morning, Jacoby Myers with Aiden O'Connell or Godwin. PPR and point per first down. That's new. I don't think I've seen too many leagues with that. That's pretty cool. Aiden O'Connell or Godwin. Godwin against the Saints. Godwin does lead his team in red zone targets and actually is getting about the same amount of usage as Mike Evans, but Mike Evans is just getting the chunk plays. I think between these two receivers, we roll with Godwin. Divisional matchup. Mike Evans is likely going to have to line up across Marcus Lattimore. So I'm thinking we go Godwin between those two. All right, Richard says, full PPR, need a flex, Mike Evans, Pierce, or Michael Thomas. Pierce, really not a big fan of him, have not been too efficient, and we are also seeing Devin Singletary slowly work his way into relevancy again. All right, I need to figure this out. I just want to get this window up. There we go. Okay. So, if we look at Devin Singletary, this is kind of why I am a little concerned about the entire Dameon Pierce situation. He's a little more involved in the pass catching game than we have seen in, I guess, games past if you're referencing his rookie year. There's the beginning of my matchup. ETN getting usage as we expected. Not a whole lot of efficiency. This is half point PPR, but rip. And Kirk looks all right today. Yeah, it's so weird having those London games on. I was watching a little bit when I woke up, and I was like, nah, let's just stream. Pierce. Singletary. Just getting a little more usage. Again, it's not a ton, but I would say 39% of snaps compared to 21% of snaps is a pretty big deal, and we're seeing an increase in efficiency as well. I don't think the fact that these numbers are going up and these numbers are going up is a coincidence, especially when you look at the fact, and he's not too involved as a pass catcher, but especially when you look at the fact that Pierce not really jumping off the page this year at all. Saw more snaps against Jacksonville, the most chances we've really seen him get. Completely bailed out by a touchdown. If you're looking at PPR format, 3.1 plus 5.8. He had 8.9 points on 17 touches. Again, the targets, 3 per game, is actually more than we were seeing last year. By a little bit, we saw 39 in 13 games. So actually, that's exactly 3 per game. So we're about the same, and the efficiency is at least so far not there. Meanwhile, Devin Singletary taking the same cards that they've both been dealt and looking to be the more efficient back. So, Richard, I'm out on Dameon Pierce. Now between Michael Thomas and Mike Evans. Obviously, Mike Evans looking like the better play, except for the fact that, yes, he does have to line up against Marcus Lattimore. I mean, usage-wise, this guy is the favorite right now. Godwin actually around the same in targets, but these big chunk plays that are resulting in 28.5 yards per catch. And the Bears game looks like an outlier, but these are still nice performances as well. A touchdown in each of his first 3 games. And then you have Michael Thomas, the second option. We do have Derek Carr back, so we know that this guy's likely still going to get 5, 6, 7 targets. He's actually had 8, 9, and 9. Against Tampa Bay, I want to see if their secondary is still bruised up. I know Carlton Davis was out the prior week or 2. Just Jamel Dean. Carlton Davis is back. Winfield is back. Front seven's pretty healthy except for Cansey. They've got Vita. They've got Devin White. They've got Shaq Barrett, Levante David. That's a tough one. Even in a tough matchup, I really do think I got to go roll with Mike Evans just because of the overall usage. 8 targets, 9 targets, 9 targets. So we're looking at 25. Or no, 26. And Mike Evans. Also, folks, I apologize. My voice, obviously not here, if you could tell already, so I'm not going to be screaming or anything. We're getting about the same usage. This is just the stuff I try and look up. Marshawn Lattimore. I don't know what I'm talking about. Obviously, these guys have bad blood. And then I got your tight end question as well, Richard. This is not what I was looking for at all. There we go. Thank you. What? Okay. I just want data between these two guys. Just one moment. Because I hear about this a lot, but I actually want to see how much the dude's shutting him down. Wow. Okay, he came in against them with 9 catches over 8 games, and this is just a couple of years ago. Maybe we go with Michael Thomas. Richard, there's not as much of a usage dip between the two, or deficit, as I thought. I mean, Mike Evans is at 26 targets. Obviously, a touchdown in each of the first 3 games. And Michael Thomas is at 26. So Derek Carr spreading the ball out pretty well to his 1 and 2 options. I think we're going to go with Michael Thomas here. Better matchup. Marcus Lattimore literally owns Mike Evans from what I just saw, which is pretty crazy. So we'll go with that. Full PPR, need a tight end. Waller or Goddard. Okay, so Waller against the Seattle defense. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, guys. Or Goddard. Up against Washington. I mean, this is really a game that I could see bleed away, and all of a sudden, Philly just goes run heavy the second half. We're seeing more of the usage that we wanted to see from Goddard the last couple of weeks. Even in a couple of games that should have gotten out of hand. The Minnesota game was closer than it probably should have been. Tampa Bay, they handled them. And Goddard had 7 targets in each one. 8 and 9 points. We're seeing a little bit more consistency. Waller isn't being what anyone wants him to be. Still serviceable. People are saying he hasn't hit his ceiling. I will gladly take 13 points. I know 5 and 6.6 are not ideal by any means. But I will say that Darren Waller probably has the higher ceiling here. There's not as much volume competition. Saquon Barkley is doubtful. I know he's competing with Paris Campbell, I guess, but this is a pretty run-heavy team. Outside of that, though, I mean, you look at who Dallas Goedert has to fight for targets with and just touches with. You've got DeAndre Swift, you've got Kenneth Gainwell, you've got Devonta Smith, and you have A.J. Brown, to say the very least. Jacob says, start Sutton or Dell. Oh, my gosh. All right, Sutton or Dell. Tank Dell's been doing more with less, man. I really like Tank Dell. I think that Courtland Sutton could really tear up the Bears secondary, that's for sure. But these are pretty promising numbers, and this passing offense of the Houston Texans is going a lot better than I thought. And it's kind of a match made in heaven because I still don't think Houston's going to go out and win 8 or 9 games, right? More times than not, they will be working from behind. Really tough matchup against the Steelers today, though. Meanwhile, Courtland Sutton, although I don't love him, has a pretty good matchup against the Bears. And Jalen Johnson's out. I think especially with Jalen Johnson out, we might just have to go with Courtland Sutton. I'll say this. Courtland Sutton's going to have the higher floor. Tank Dell's going to have the higher ceiling. He could explode and prevail against this tough defense. CJ Stroud hasn't been fully tested yet. Showed up against Jacksonville, but we've seen so far their defense has not been too sharp. And Tank Dell is technically the third option. Again, I didn't really think that was an issue to begin with, but this could definitely be an ugly game. If we look at the over-under, at least with this game, it looks like we're going to receive 46.5 points scored. 41.5. I mean, this is supposed to be a really ugly game. Pittsburgh secondary is honestly no joke. So I think we're going to roll with Courtland Sutton in a better matchup. In a vacuum, I'm taking Tank Dell every day of the week. All right. Mega Brick says, full PPR start 3, Jalen Waddle, Tutu Atwell, T. Higgins, Jahan Dotson, Chris Godwin, or Joshua Palmer. Okay, starting 3 out of those. Jalen Waddle, good to go, which is good to see. He was questionable halfway through the week. Tutu Atwell, I mean, Puka is 100% healthy for the first time since week 1. T. Higgins, the second option for Burrow. Jahan Dotson, Chris Godwin, Joshua Palmer with Mike Williams out. I'm thinking, I mean, we haven't seen a ton of volume going in the direction of Jalen Waddle. 5 and 6 targets is anything but promising. Missed last week, now up against Buffalo. Pretty tough secondary. I still have a really tough time going against somebody who finished 2022 as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver in standard PPR. I think we're going to roll with Waddle and trust the passing offense. We saw what Miami did without him, right? So I think it's going to be fine. It should be a decently high-scoring game. Let's see what the odds makers have it at. $53.5 points. All right. So I don't think, even though Miami is only 2.5-point underdogs, I don't think that the Bills are going to be able to completely shut out this high-flying offense. I really don't think anybody can. You can only contain them. So we're going to pick Waddle, Atwell, Higgins, Dotson. Dotson not getting the usage I originally anticipated. And he does have a decent amount of volume competition if you think about it. Brian Robinson Jr. has just been getting fed the ball. Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin up there. Logan Thomas getting more than we thought. Jahan Dotson is tied for the team lead, but again, 16 targets through 3 games in an offense that really doesn't look all that great. Sam Howell now has 5 interceptions. Obviously, it was an ugly day at the office against Buffalo. Against the Eagles, too, against that secondary that is starting to get healthier and healthier. Not the biggest fan of Dotson, all right, so let's run through this. In on Waddle, out on Dotson. We're between Tutu, Higgins, Godwin, and Palmer for the final 2. I think I'm going to roll with Godwin. He's been getting a decent amount of volume. It's going to be Mike Evans against Marcus Lattimore. So really, if Baker wants to push the ball down the field, he's probably going to have to go with the second option. He could go with Trey Palmer as well. But the experienced man who has 3 seasons of at least 1,000 yards and Chris Godwin should be good to go. So I'm going to go Waddle, Godwin. Now we're between Tutu, Higgins, and Palmer. I mean, Palmer had the most targets of anybody on the Chargers last year because he was just available. Keenan Allen would be in and out. Mike Williams would be in and out. Obviously, Mike Williams is out now. He still has to compete with Gerald Everett. And he still has to compete with Keenan Allen, but Austin Eckler is likely not playing as well. And Las Vegas' secondary has looked anything but promising so far. I think we're going to roll. Tutu's been really consistent as well, though. 8 targets, 9 targets, 9 targets. T. Higgins has only caught 40% of the passes thrown in his direction. I'd avoid and wait for now. I'm going Waddle. I'm going Godwin. I'm out on Dotson. I'm out on Higgins. It's between Atwell and Palmer. It's Indy's tough secondary. Richardson's back. Should hold the ball a little bit more. I think I'm going to roll Palmer in a pretty nice matchup with Austin Eckler and Mike Williams gone for this week. Definitely some volume opportunity. I'm going to go Waddle. I do think he's due. I hate using that word, but it's also supposed to be a high-scoring contest in Buffalo. He's the number 2 option on the best passing offense in the entire league. We're going to trust that. And I'm going to go Godwin because I do think that Marshawn Lattimore should have Mike Evans on locks as he has historically. and the second option in Godwin, who's sometimes been the first. I mean, over the course of the last 2 years, he has more targets overall than Mike Evans. I think he'll get his today. Lamar says start Collins or Dell. I'm probably starting Dell. He's been doing more with less. Tough matchup against Pittsburgh, though. But because Collins is showing up as the wide receiver one at the moment, we're going to go with Dell. Jelly of the Month says PPR and point per first down. Current is Stevenson and Javonte, RB2 and flex. Switch Rachaad White or Roschon. I mean, Roschon, I typically wouldn't even opt for a running back too, but Roschon does have a decent amount of pass catching upside. If we go here, mainly referencing week 1, to be honest with you. Not too much outside of it. Roschon has a nice matchup, but again, he is the running back too on an offense that's usually operating from behind, so they have to go pass heavy, whether they want to or not. So we're looking at Stevenson and Javonte. Now, there is a report out there that Ezekiel Elliott is getting more carries, should be in more of a starter role. So Ezekiel Elliott to see increased workload against Dallas. Currently averaging 4.4 yards a carry, while Stevenson is well below 3. Downgrade Ramondre. I definitely swap Ramondre just with this news. And Zeke, he's been pretty efficient in 2 of the first 3 weeks. This pass catching upside is not something we've seen a ton from him. But Bill O'Brien's just kind of trying things out, experimenting, throwing things at the wall, and seeing what sticks in New England. So in all honesty, yeah, I'm probably swapping Stevenson out. I think Javonte does fine against a Bears defense that allowed more points than anybody last year and really didn't make a whole lot of changes. And if anything, they're more bruised up now just 3 weeks in. So we're going to swap Stevenson for Roschon being the running back too. And I honestly think that Denver could handle Chicago. Chicago's just a different level of bad. Meanwhile, Rachaad White, has he had a great year? No. He has had a decent amount of targets. I mean, I do like this. This is promising. We're probably going... look what he did against Chicago. So that kind of makes me tempted. No, yeah, Javonte should do fine. We're going to roll Rachaad White and swap him out for Ramondre Stevenson because of the fact that Zeke is projected to have a starter-like role. We'll see what the split looks like on that, but if Zeke's getting the majority, I'm not really confident with rolling with someone who's been inefficient and has to take a back seat in Stevenson. Alex is in here. Good to see you. Tank Dell versus Jacoby Myers is a flex PPR. I believe both have the same estimated point total, but Dell has been on fire. It is a tough matchup against Philadelphia. Against Pittsburgh's secondary. Jacoby Myers has the better matchup, Alex. So, no problem, Jelly of the Month. Yeah, Alex, that's why they're even. I mean, in a vacuum, I'm taking Tank Dell over Jacoby Myers every day of the week right now, especially with how surprisingly well that passing offense has been in Houston. But in all honesty, Jacoby Myers going up against that Los Angeles secondary that's allowing over 335 passing yards per game. That's close. Dell or Myers? Dell's been healthier, getting more usage. I just think it's supposed to be an ugly game. I mean, a projected point total of 41.5 between two teams is not high. Obviously, the odds makers don't know everything. I think... See, Aiden O'Connell's in, so then we have to wonder who's his favorite going to be. I think we go with Tank Dell. Dell has been on fire lately. It's not the greatest matchup, seeing that he has to go toe-to-toe with the Pittsburgh secondary. But I think I'm going to go with Tank Dell. Dell's got the higher ceiling. Myers has the higher floor in that easier matchup. But again, if Aiden O'Connell's in, who's his favorite going to be? Can we trust he's going to spread the ball around? We don't have much of a sample size with him, so I'd go with him. JVL Leaks, good to see you back in here. Amari Cooper or Tank Dell for flex. Now this, I will pull it. Okay, I will definitely take Amari Cooper over Tank Dell. Obviously, Nick Chubb down for the season. This team has become more pass-oriented. Amari Cooper went in with, I believe it was like an abdominal or an oblique injury or rib injury or groin injury. against a really tough Pittsburgh secondary and was mossing people left and right. That's about all I needed to see. The circumstances were dire. It was a short week without Chubb. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to Amari Cooper over Dell. He has a better matchup. Take Dell against Pittsburgh. Not my favorite. Again, I'll take him over somebody like Jakobi Meyers. But Amari Cooper is the wide receiver one. Little to no debate. Going up against Baltimore. Should be an ugly game as well. Cooper is sneakily one of the better wide receivers in the entire league. He's somebody not a lot of people talk about. I got ripped in the preseason rankings for putting him in the same tier as Jalen Waddle. I mean, the guy's consistent. He's not touchdown reliant. Ugly week to start off. That was just an ugly game, to be honest. One of the best secondaries in the league, and he did this. I'm taking Amari Cooper for sure. And just to give you an idea of volume competition, I know there's Donovan Peoples-Jones. I know there's Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore's actually tied with him right now, but, I mean, he's Mr. Checkdown, while Amari Cooper is getting more throws down the field. Way more. He's best on the team in yards per reception, and yet he has a better catch percentage than Elijah Moore. Being targeted down the field way more, right? 4 20-plus yard receiving plays. The rest of the team has 3. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of this situation. So I'm going to go Amari Cooper there. Oh, that's right. Watson is out. It's Dorian. Oh. JVL, you are right. That was literally in my injury updates. I'm just like kind of distracted by the fact my voice isn't the best right now and I'm feeling a little under the weather. I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, random new quarterback, I'll kind of follow the same rule of thumb then that I did with Aiden O'Connell and Jakobi Meyers. It's a good matchup, but new quarterback. Maybe he looked good in preseason. Maybe he looked good and started, opening some eyes, but we have nothing to go off of here. I'm going to go with Tank Dell. All right. ZV Wrestling is in here. I think it's my first time seeing you. Yep, first time viewer. Should I start Collins or Downs in my wide receiver / running back flex? Yeah, I'm going to go with Nico Collins just because of sheer usage. I know we do have Anthony Richardson back. But if we look, it's a 3-headed monster in the wide receiving core. I never thought I'd be describing the Houston Texans that way in 2023. But Nico Collins is getting a lot of usage. He's technically got the second most behind Robert Woods. He's done the most with his opportunities so far. 7.3 yards per reception. Catch percentage isn't too bad. Touchdown. 7 big plays out of 11. These down the field targets from him and Stroud are working. Not the best matchup, of course, against Pittsburgh. But okay, keep that in mind. 23 targets. Josh Downs has 24. But again, not a ton of down the field work. And that's mainly my argument here, okay? About the same usage, but more down the field work with Collins. This could also be an ugly game. But I think that we roll with Nico Collins. Somebody who's just had a little more efficiency, a little more work down the field. Hope that helps out, ZV Wrestling. Any other questions that you have, please feel free to ask me. I am here to help. Just half an hour away from noon kickoff, at least in my time zone. But half an hour away from the first afternoon slate. Any questions you folks have, I'll run through my injuries again. All right, it's scrolling on the ticker as well, but not all of them. Should I bench Mixon or Moss for Stevenson? Probably not, because JVL, we do have reports coming out that Ramondre Stevenson could be taking a back seat to Ezekiel Elliott, which is not the best news for Ramondre Stevenson owners, even though he does have a lot of pass catching upside. Against Dallas, too, that's really not a chance I want to take. If you look game script-wise, all right, not only is there Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, everybody up on that front seven. Not only is Dallas' defense one of the toughest, if not the toughest, in the entire league. But Ramondre Stevenson has not been efficient. And now we're getting reports that Ezekiel Elliott isn't fully taking his job, but should see an increased workload when he was already nearly getting the same amount of touches as Stevenson and was more efficient with less touches. Okay, so more efficient running back, tough matchup in general. I'm really not messing with Stevenson. Mixon or Moss, no, we're fine. JT's not back. Zach Moss had over 30 touches last game. Mixon playing for an offense that is starting to get their footing. I'm not the biggest Joe Mixon fan, but he does have pass catching upside, and at least there's not a ton of volume competition. I don't see Chase Brown coming in and taking his job. Okay. Yeah, so ZV, I hope that helps. I'm going to go with Nico Collins because of the down-the-field action. Tough matchup for sure. But that is where we are going to roll with your flex option. All right, we'll run through our injury updates and usage updates, which Ezekiel Elliott is one of those. Austin Eckler and Saquon Barkley are doubtful once again. Plug and plays I'll mention in just about 2 minutes. David Njoku is in against Baltimore. He has like burn marks on his skin. Kind of a scary situation where he had some accident with a bonfire. Looks like he's good to go and is supposedly able to comfortably put his helmet on, which is good news. Deshaun Watson is out against Baltimore. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who had some nice showings on design rollouts in preseason, will take over. Derek Carr is in against Tampa Bay. We saw him exit the game against Green Bay in Week 3. Obviously, if Jameis Winston were to come in, wouldn't have been the worst case scenario, but we know Olave is the favorite target for Carr. Carr is in, so hopefully that gives us some reassurance. Miles Sanders expected to play against Minnesota. He's had a lingering groin injury throughout the entire week and has been listed as questionable, but it looks like he will be good to go. Minnesota's defense obviously gives up a lot of yards, but they're only allowing 3.8 yards per carry. So their run defense hasn't been horrible. It's middle of the pack. Secondary has been more of the issue. Marcus Brown is expected to play with a thumb injury against San Francisco. Obviously not the best matchup in the world against this strong San Fran secondary. But the Cards, if they get blown out like how they're supposed to, you could see a lot of garbage time targets. Deebo Samuel also expected to play against Arizona. He had a ribs and then a knee injury later in the week. No Elijah Mitchell, so if Deebo is around 100%, maybe we see him a little more in the run game. I do think early on when San Fran is trying to jump all over Arizona, if they don't do it in the run game, Brandon Ayuk, who's been healthy pretty much the whole week, is probably going to be more involved. More usage for guys like Ezekiel Elliott, who, as we just said, should see more of a starter role this week. And Devon Achane, we know what he did, all right? We know that team put up 70 points, and he honestly had a better day than Raheem Mostert. Is way younger by, I believe, like 10 years. So should play a more significant part in the Dolphins offense, which is good. It means, he's not going to have a one and done. They want to get him more involved. He's going to get more touches, more opportunity to put up performances that will help you win in Week 4. Joshua Palmer is rostered in 46% of leagues, and he's going up against a Las Vegas secondary that's got some holes in it. Tyler Boyd, 43% rostered. He goes up against the Tennessee secondary that's allowing over 270 passing yards per game. Roshan Johnson, 45% rostered, goes up against Denver, allowing the most fantasy points to running backs. That's more of a depth play. He's still behind Herbert, and I do have Denver winning this game. So Chicago will probably have to rely on the pass a little bit more. Jake Ferguson, 23% rostered against New England. He leads the NFL in red zone targets with 9. It is a tough matchup, but if you're in a pinch, which a lot of people with tight ends are, that is an option for sure for a plug and play. And Seahawks defense, I love streaming defenses just as much as the next person. They are rostered in 34% of leagues. They're going up against the Giants. If there's no Saquon, which again, he's doubtful, I like the play a lot. All right, we've got LBR in here. Good to see you. Yo, should I start Michael Thomas or Chris Godwin at the flex? I am probably going Godwin. Going toe-to-toe with one another. With how well Marshawn Lattimore has historically lined up against Mike Evans, and with the fact that Chris Godwin is still getting a decent amount of usage, it just hasn't gone his way yet. We can't just sit here and claim that Chris Godwin's being ignored. I mean, 6 targets, 8 targets, 5 targets. Hasn't found the end zone yet, which is unfortunate. But Mike Evans, historically, against Marshawn Lattimore, has been in jail. So, Michael Thomas is fine. He's been getting a decent amount of usage, but I really do think that if there's a game where Baker looks at Godwin more, it's probably this one. JVL Leaks currently 3-0, but I have Pitts, who has been really disappointing. Do I trade for tight end? You could honestly stream JVL. You could honestly stream and go after a Jake Ferguson. He's only owned in a quarter of leagues, leads the league in red zone targets, and a high-flying offense in Dallas, even without Kellen Moore, right? If you want to go after somebody like Gerald Everett, JVL, I just think unless you want to make a splash, right, and get a Travis Kelce, a Mark Andrews, a TJ Hawkinson, a George Kittle, somebody in that realm. Unless you want to make a splash, there's no point in trading for a Dallas Goedert. You're going to get almost the same amount of production by picking up someone off waivers, by picking up somebody off of free agency, like a Jake Ferguson, like a Gerald Everett, who is now in an offense that's currently missing Austin Eckler and will be missing Mike Williams for the rest of the season. And Keenan Allen was out a decent amount last year. Do you think Eckler will play? Eckler is listed as doubtful right now. I don't believe so. I can go back and look. Once I hopped on the stream, last I saw, he's probably not playing. Still doubtful. Austin Eckler, not expected to play. This is 2 days ago. I've got no updates. Yeah, I mean, anything that's doubtful, I am not even chancing it. I'm ripping them out of my lineup right away, and unfortunately finding an alternative like a Joshua Kelly. So Eckler's probably not playing. Yeah, JVL, I mean, 3-0 is awesome. It's not ideal to have somebody like Kyle Pitts who hasn't been getting a whole lot of usage. So if you want to go and trade and make a splash, I wouldn't give up your depth. Or no, I'm sorry, I wouldn't give up your starters. If you want to reach into your bench and combine Pitts, who some people are still pretty high on, with a bench receiver, give somebody else some pass catching upside, or find the Saquon Barkley or Austin Eckler teams and try and shoot them a deal, or the Nick Chubb team. You could go that route. Otherwise, I honestly think it's not worth trading for a tight end if you don't get a guy in that top 5. Just go and pick up Jake Ferguson, go and pick up Gerald Everett with the increased volume opportunity. LBR says, that means I have to start Dameon Pierce. F in the chat for that one. Let me know who's on your waivers. I don't know if you're going to be able to spin a trade in the next half an hour, unfortunately. Let me know who's on waivers, and maybe we can work something out, because Dameon Pierce is also slowly losing touches to Devin Singletary, and rightfully so, because Singletary has been the better back. Again, nothing major yet, but Pierce more of a traditional ground and pound back. Yet to get over 40 yards on the ground. Bailed out by a touchdown here. Ugly start to the year for Dameon Pierce. So, yeah, LBR, let me know who's on the waivers and what we can do there. See if I can help you out here and see if anybody else outside of... I mentioned Roschon. Pretty good matchup if you wanted to try and chance it with him over Dameon Pierce. I don't think you'd be hurting yourself too much. See if Matt Breida is available. Only rostered in 35.7%. I would take Matt Breida in this situation he's in against Seattle over Dameon Pierce. Dalvin Cook, possibly. I don't love this. Especially against Kansas City's front. Never mind. He's rostered in way too many leagues. Yeah, Tyjae is going to be a project. Give him a few weeks. I don't think that Derrick Henry loses a ton of touches right away, but he has been anything but what people hoped for as a mid-second rounder. But again, that's the risk you take with running backs who are about to turn 30. All right, we got Blurpy in here. Rachaad White or Roschon, PPR. Rachaad White. We're going to take the RB1. Roschon's got a pretty good matchup. Rachaad White's got pass-catching upside, something I have really enjoyed seeing. Baker opting for the check down. Not something he was known for too much unless Kareem Hunt was in his last few years with the Browns. I mean, this helps. An extra 8 points, an extra 5 points, an extra 3 points. Not the most efficient on the ground yet, but not a whole lot of competition behind him. So I think we go Rachaad White here. Getting way more snaps, mainly my explanation for that. It may be a better matchup for Roschon Johnson, but you've got someone who's averaging, we'll call it 82, 83 snaps, all right? 82 or 83% of snaps. Roschon is yet to break 50. It is going up. There is pass-catching upside. I really think we just want to roll with Rachaad White here. It's the safer play. Maybe down the road it's Roschon. ZV Wrestling, good stuff. We got some more questions here. Laporta was available in my league, so I picked him up off waivers and dropped Goddard. When was Laporta available? That's awesome. Now, if it was in the last week, you stole him. But Sam Laporta, looking like he's going to be a prominent part of this offense. And it helps, right, that we've had Amon-Ra St. Brown banged up. We've had Josh Reynolds banged up. Khalif Raymond hasn't been extremely involved. Sam Laporta is the second most involved. I mean, for a rookie tight end, you'll take 500 or 600 yards for the season. He's tracking for nearly 1,000. Again, small sample size. He's tracking for over 1,000. 3 big plays. This is a big play offense, man. Super exciting. I honestly think that the Lions could be the 3 or 4 seed this year, depending on how the division stacks up. I would only put the Eagles and the Niners over them. Maybe the Cowboys if we're looking at like talent evaluation top to bottom. But seed-wise, they'd have to be the 3. Yeah, awesome job, ZV Wrestling. That's really good to hear. I think you've got a premier tight end here. Only 7 tight ends last year scored over 10 points per game. Really shallow market. It was like week 2. I mean, that's awesome. An early pick like that. I had him on the bench, but I started him for the first time last week. And you were rewarded, right? Honestly, it's sad to say, but in this tight end market, we will take anybody that's getting over 7 or 8 points per game. Elijah says start Nacua or Ayuk. I do like Ayuk. I think he turns into the wide receiver 1 this year. Got hindered by injuries a little bit the last couple of weeks. But he's going up against Arizona. And yes, Arizona's horrible, right? The problem with that is he has to compete with Deebo Samuel. He has to compete with Christian McCaffrey. Not that he usually doesn't have to. And George Kittle. And because San Francisco is favored by, I believe, 14 points. Maybe the lines moved a little bit. Yeah, they're favored by 14 points. What does that mean game script-wise? If San Francisco blows Arizona out of the water, it's going to be a run-heavy second half. That's what teams do. They usually don't try and shove it in your face, unless you're the Dolphins, apparently. But even so, they were running it to Devon Achane. So if San Fran, in the widest spread of the entire week, and I think in the league so far at 14 points, if San Fran comes out and hits the Cardinals in the mouth and then goes run-heavy second half, there's not going to be a lot of chances for Ayuk. So he's got to score early. Anytime you're cutting somebody's window of opportunity down to maybe 2 or 3 quarters, I'm not the biggest fan of that. Meanwhile, Nacua leads the entire league in targets. Cooper Kupp's not back. I'm going to keep it simple and go with him. Crown Trend says, pick 3, full PPR, Raheem Mostert, Michael Pittman, Amari Cooper, Kyren Williams. That's a good slot. Good slate. Raheem Mostert's going to have some volume competition with Devon Achane. However, pretty weak opposition. I know the Bills are meant for their defense, right? Front 7 has not been strong. Obviously, they gave up Tremaine Edmonds. Nope, wrong thing. People would be shocked to see this, but who would have thought? The Bills are allowing 5.9 yards per carry, so I think there's plenty of room for Mostert to thrive. Yeah, so we're going to go with Mostert for sure. Pittman, Cooper, Williams. Williams is very volume reliant, right? Pittman looks to be the wide receiver 1 in Anthony Richardson's eyes. Josh Downs looks good. But Kyren Williams, volume and touchdown reliant. He was in for 100% of snaps. All right? Oh my gosh. If we could get our running backs in for 100% of snaps, things are usually going to go well, right? Yeah, 3.8 yards a carry. Didn't get in the end zone. Had 2 receptions on 7 targets. Ended with 8.5 points in standard PPR. This is half PPR, so it shows up as 7.5. Yeah, he saw all of the running back touches. Granted, they lost. They had to go to a more pass-heavy scheme and abandon things against the Bengals. But it wasn't a blowout. This guy's extremely volume reliant. He needed 20 touches here. Again, got 2 touchdowns. This is not sustainable. If he doesn't score and everything else goes right, which he got all of the running back touches, nothing went to Ronnie Rivers, and he got all of the snaps, I don't love Kyren Williams, so I'm going to leave him out. So we are going to roll with Raheem Mostert for now, Michael Pittman, and Amari Cooper. Michael Pittman has been dealt a horrible hand. He's played for so many different quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson goes out. Gardner Minshew comes in, and he still looks phenomenal. Edward's in here. Good to see you, man. Says, yo, man, full PPR. Start Jakobi Meyers with no Jimmy G, Addison, DJ Moore, or Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's in an extremely tough spot. I'm not messing with the secondary of Kansas City. Their defense has looked phenomenal. It's one of the holes in their game the last few years. Strong defense. Zach Wilson under center. You could make the garbage time argument. DJ Moore, that offense is horrible. He is literally ignored. And he got a garbage time touchdown against the Chiefs, but I don't want to rely on that. Addison against the Panthers. J.C. Horn will likely not be shadowing him. The focus should, and rightfully so, be on Justin Jefferson, but we are dealing with a wide receiver too. Jakobi Meyers with no Jimmy G. I think we, with this slate of people, trust Jakobi Meyers and Aiden O'Connell because he is going up against a Chargers defense that, drumroll please, has allowed the most passing yards per game. I think the opposition's weak enough for us to pull the trigger on something like this. All right? So I'm going to go with Jakobi Meyers. Second option for me would maybe be Garrett Wilson because of the garbage time. DJ Moore is just not being used correctly. I could get burned on this. I'm not taking the chance. Yep. So we're going to go with Jakobi Meyers or Garrett Wilson. Edward, hope that helps. Jelly of the month says starting A-Chain half since I think Barkley is out. It looks like he's doubtful. Dropped Breda to stash Spears. Jeff Wilson. Oh, dropped Breda to stash Spears. Jeff Wilson or Justice Hill, half PPR. I mean, Jeff Wilson Jr. now has to compete with Devon A-Chain, Raheem Mostert, and Selvin Ahmed. Yeah, and it's a pass-heavy offense for the most part, so there's not too much to go around. In terms of rush volume, Justice Hill, I mean, I guess you never know what could happen in that Ravens backfield that continues to get very, very injured. Spears could be interesting because of the lack of efficiency. Henry's not hurt. He's just not doing well. And Tyjae Spears is starting to get some more volume. So maybe we do Tyjae Spears for a more long-term decision. All right, hope that helps. TS says, sitting Evans for Puka. Kyren and Walker are my running backs. Tyreek is my wide receiver 1. Nice team. Flex is Mostert or Swift. I'm leaning Swift so I don't play 4 players from the same teams. Yeah, at that point, you've really got to rely on everyone to do well. And I do think that the Eagles handle the Commanders pretty easily. The Commanders ran into their first real challenge last week, and it was a buzzsaw in Buffalo. I am probably going Swift. Yeah. Swift. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Who would the 4 players be on? Because you've got Puka and Kyren, you've got Tyreek and Mostert. Oh, I'm thinking Swift. Okay, so you have 4 players on the Dolphins. High-flying offense, but still, we need literally everything to go right. And I'm not sure they go out and score 70 again. I'll sometimes make a 3-player stack if we did like a Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, and Travis Etienne. Because it's balanced, and even that's tough. You need a balanced game. All of a sudden, if one team blows out the other and they start going pass-heavy or run-heavy, you're abandoning one of them. Yeah, 4 players from the same team, I would avoid that stack. Crown Trent says, thank you, no problem. Sports Spotlight in here. Good to see you. Start 2, Kyren Williams, Zay Flowers, Marquise Brown, PPR. I made the mistake of starting Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, we had no inclination that he was going to get barely any snaps, barely any touches, right? He was just out there. And when he did get the ball, he got leveled. So starting 2, Kyren Williams is pretty volume dependent, but Marquise Brown is going up against a tough secondary. Kyren Williams, we just talked about. Very volume dependent. He literally got everything we could have ever wanted from somebody. 100% of running back touches, 100% of snaps. Wasn't efficient. Got a couple catches. Didn't get in the end zone. That's a screwy situation. So I'm going to drop Kyren out of there and stick with my usual rule of flex plays unless there's any outstanding exclusions. We're going to go Zay Flowers and Marquise Brown in the flex spot. Jelly says, hit the like button. Appreciate it. Again, folks, thanks so much for the support today so far. We'll be on for a few more minutes but we also just hit 800 subs. Just want to say that's a reflection of all of you and all of your support. So thanks so much. Sports says, I also have Roschon and Cam Akers. Yeah, I would avoid Roschon. Good matchup. Cam Akers, we got to see him worked in. A good matchup for Roschon, but we haven't seen him get over 50% of snaps yet. And Cam Akers, he's in there with Madison, but Madison's actually coming off of a decent week. Right? So 5 receptions on 7 targets. Very efficient on the ground. He's actually improved on the ground each week. Was not the biggest Alexander Madison fan to begin the season, but now, now I'm not sure. Yeah, Marquise is hurt, but it looks like he's going to go. It's a thumb injury. It is against San Francisco. I'm going to play the garbage time card there and say he gets some targets towards the end. If you wanted to leave Marquise out and go Kyron and Zay, that's fine. We're definitely sticking with Zay Flowers with the OBJ injury. Edward says, is Aiden O'Connell any good? Yeah, looked really good in preseason. Started to raise some eyebrows. Devontae Adams was talking very highly of him. But we got to see how he does in the regular season. That's kind of my stance on that. And folks, looks like, oh no. All right. I was trying to see the London game here. Richard says full PPR, Tutu or Thielen. I'm going to go Adam Thielen. High usage. Last couple of games. Looks like Bryce Young's back. Not saying this is going to happen again, but that was pretty cool. But Minnesota's defense has a lot of holes in it for sure. There's no secret there. Up there in terms of pass yards allowed per game. Up there in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. If we look here, they allow the 3rd most amount of fantasy points to wide receivers. And storyline-wise, I think it makes sense if you have a sure-handed wide receiver 1 and a rookie quarterback. He caught Bryce Young's first ever pass in preseason. He caught Bryce Young's first ever touchdown in preseason. It's getting better and better. I don't expect to see another jump like this in production where we see 42 points, but that would be pretty cool. Great matchup against his former team. Weak secondary. The rookie quarterback has looked to rely on him a little bit more as of late. Andy Dalton obviously was in last week where he threw the ball 58 freaking times. But yeah, I'm going to go Adam Thielen between him and Tutu. All right, folks, we're just about to get lineups locked 12 minutes out from kickoff. So I think I'm going to call the stream. Thank you so much for the support. We'll have some more videos out early in the week ahead of week 5. Going to get way ahead of the ball. I'll actually start making some tonight once the main slates are over. So thank you for joining the stream as always. Please drop any questions I was unable to answer in the comment section below, especially ahead of those 325-ish games or the second afternoon slate, if you will. Like and subscribe if this stream helped you out. Rolling into the main slate of action in week 4. And have a wonderful day, everybody. Good luck in your fantasy matchups.